This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
1, 2, 3!
And we welcome you to the Hot Tag here on the PFC Entertainment Network. He is Shawn Grugel. I am Jason Clouse. And this right here is a prime example as to why you want to hit the follow button on the PFC Entertainment Network Facebook page, because you never know when we're going to go live. We are live streaming this, very impromptu, but this also is, it was a game time decision. When I say game time, I mean literally 15 seconds before I hit the go button, the record button. Like, do we want to live stream this? We didn't hype this up. We didn't promote it. But what the hell else are people going to watch at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, Shawn, other than your local news? And I don't know anybody that really is, all that excited about watching the news at any point in the day, let alone 8 in the morning. Be that as it may, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, brother. Yeah, in reference to your question, I think most people are happy to be watching the ice finally dissipate from their homes and watching the drips of water hit the ground. I think
For now.
we're almost there. Almost. A few more hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, I was just looking at I have not been paying close attention at all to the news, the weather, that type of thing. But I did catch like a headline that there was another winter event on its way here. So I was doing a little bit of research on that this morning. Not as bad as what I thought we were going to get based on the headlines. That clickbait, man, that's a business unto itself,
Yes, sir.
It did what it was supposed to do. It got my attention. There is, some potential for some snow, possible mixture of some sort. Nothing like we got the other day here in the great state of Michigan, but we're not out of the woods yet in terms of winter weather. Still got a little ways to go. Christ, we could be dealing with this up until the middle of April.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
It's been a hot minute since you and I have sat down on this particular show, but this is part of the new season that is 2025 here in the PFC land. We are going to make this a regular part of our rotation week in and week out, because if you listen to the most recent episode of Power Tripping Through the 80s, where we celebrated 100 episodes of that particular show, we kind of peeled the curtain back and let our fans know that we're kind of putting that show up on the shelf for a little bit. Shawn and I are going to focus on this, and then you can also see us every other Friday on the Fatal 4-Way on ONTV. More on that later on in the broadcast, but we're going to be looking at the headlines in and around the world of professional wrestling this morning. And if you have an opinion, you have a comment, you have a question, you can correspond with us live right now by dropping us a comment in the live chat on the PFC Network Facebook page. So if you are watching us, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday morning. I see Brian Balf is watching with us. So
Good morning,
Brian. We're looking forward to seeing him this Friday. Of course, one of our co-hosts on the Fatal 4-Way. before we start breaking down the news and notes and then around the professional wrestling business, because we've got opinions and a shit ton of them, I understand you're overcoming a little bit of the ick, as it were. It seems like that's going around here.
Yeah, over the last, you can say last 3 days, I've probably spent about 27 hours napping on and off, and I've been in bed for the last 17. It's been rough. It's been real rough. You can hear it in my voice probably right now. But being in the business I am, I got to tough it out. I got to get to work because we got Super Bowl happening tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And with the winter weather event, boy, everyone's going to want their bread and milk. So,
eggs, chips, dips, chains, whips. I mean, it's across the board.
Yes, sir. So, it is what it is. I don't know when my next day off is. Not soon enough, but we'll get there eventually.
Real quick, this is obviously not a sports podcast. You can actually tune into the Sports Real podcast on Wednesdays here on the PFC network. But in relation to the big game, as it were, I know you're not necessarily a huge football fan, Shawn, but do you have, are you going to be watching this game? Do you have a prediction? Is it going to be the Eagles or the Chiefs?
Who are you rooting for?
The Eagles.
Oh, well, the Chiefs, obviously.
I'm signing on the Eagles, not because I'm necessarily a huge Eagles fan. I'm doing it because I have to have that to contrast to Mr. Sheridan, who is a diehard Kansas City fan. So for entertainment purposes, and because I do own an Eagles hat that my brother had bought me, so there is sentimental attachment to it. Not because we were Eagles fans, just because he thought I needed that hat, which, so obviously that hat has a sentimental attachment. But just to create that friction with Tim, because I can't agree with him on everything. That's no fun.
Exactly.
No fun.
Matter of fact, King Richard is a Chiefs fan as well. Has been
is he?
A lifelong fan. So, yeah. So it's if he was, to come to work today, I'm going to look at him and say, go Eagles, just so I can have that bit of difference, So
got to.
I got my messages is blowing up. Is it on your end? Because I can't find it.
No.
Okay. Interesting.
What messages?
Oh, maybe this is it. Who knows? Okay. Speaking of PFC, we don't have to worry about that fake PFC. What were they? The Pure Fusion Collective anymore, because Sonya Deville has been released from her contract.
You had sent me, and I seen it late last night. You had sent me a couple of links with some of these releases from WWE. Sonya Deville kind of surprised me. Other ones on there, like
the Authors
the
of Pain,
kid from NXT, Davenport.
Blair Davenport. Yeah.
Blair Davenport, thank you. Listen, I had to do research as to figure out who that was. He just wasn't moving the needle in my neck of the woods. But
she was okay in NXT. She really was.
Mm-hmm.
But she had one match on Raw, and she just kind of disappeared after that. The Authors of Pain are gone again.
Paul Ellering.
Paul. I never liked Paul Ellering with the Authors of Pain to begin with.
Yeah.
I never did. I don't know. Paul Ellering, they kept him quiet because you had Karrion Kross on the microphone. And Karrion Kross can talk. But when you put AOP with Karrion Kross, they didn't need the voice box of, Paul Ellering. And he just, to me, struck me as a feeble old man, and I did not like that combination at all.
It bothered me that they didn't do more with him because of the history that he has in the business. You know,
Yeah,
anybody who, if you're not familiar with Paul Ellering, then clearly that tells me what your age demographic falls under. Paul Ellering at one time was the manager in professional wrestling, manager of the Road Warriors. And I understood the booking of putting him with the Authors of Pain because the Authors of Pain just they they needed something. Like they had the size, they had a good look, they were missing that mouthpiece. So bringing in Ellering to be their mouthpiece, I understood that. But when they brought him back again and put him with the Final Testament, number one, what the Final Testament to me is a Timu version of the Judgment Day. Like I
yeah,
have never been able to buy into Karrion Kross. Like I really want to because of the package of him and Scarlett. Like on paper, they look good. But when you start adding actual like sound to their voices and things of that nature, like something was amiss. There's just too many parts in Final Testament that just was not gelling. It was like everybody was kind of fighting for their spot within the group. And I felt that way about the Judgment Day too, until they found their roles. Every person in that faction now has their role. That's why it's working the way that it does. But the AOP, it's unfortunate. You know, they had a little bit of success in WWE, but um, in a time where we have had private conversations off air and on air on the Fatal Four Way, WWE really needs to reinvest in the whole tag team scene, the art
yeah.
of tag team wrestling. And you had a very good looking team with AOP, and they did nothing with them. And it's a damn shame, in my opinion.
They,
It's not a lack of talent, Sean. So what was it? Was it just that lack of personality?
I think it is. They had their opportunities. I mean, Paul Levesque gave them a second opportunity. If you remember right, they 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 actually were kind of modeled off a 3 minute warning in a sense,
Yeah.
and 3 minute warning was successful just because of the attitude when they hit the ring and how they acted when they were given minimum TV time. I mean, they were completely over. Could you say 3 minutes and the crowd would immediately pop?
Mhm.
AOP, on the other hand, they would walk to the ring. They would hardly move. They would hardly show emotion. They wouldn't acknowledge the crowd. Hell, half the time they wouldn't even acknowledge one another. They didn't even acknowledge Paul Ellering when he was ringside. And he, I mean, he was so successful with the Legion of Doom. But when you look at Animal and Hawk, they had personality. They could talk on a microphone. They could hold their own. So I think that's what happened with AOP. Now, the only other shocking release, Jason, that I didn't know if I sent it to you or not, and it surprised the hell out of me, Cedric Alexander.
Another lost opportunity
Yeah.
that they could have really did something with this kid. Uber talented, and you could see when he was part of the Hurt Business, like there's something about this kid. They just need to nurture it. You know,
Well,
they
he'll get his
had
shot in AEW.
well, yeah, and that's where it seems like he's going to go once his 90 days no compete clause is up. It's
Right.
you could pretty much lay some money down that he's going to wind up joining Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP over in AEW. Now, I'm going to be honest, and anybody that listens to the show knows I do not follow AEW. And before we start getting into the meat of the program here this morning, is there anything on, or is there anything happening on Dynamite or Collision or anything like this that's uh, worth mentioning or talking about before we get into the WWE side of things?
Man, it's funny. You know, I do watch it. I flip flopped the way I watch wrestling. I used to fast forward all the talkie and picture stuff on WWE. and then watch everything AEW. Now AEW, I'm lucky if I can get through a whole match without fast forwarding it. It's getting so bad. Every time I watch it, I like to play a game called Hey, Where's This Guy? Because, we don't see Jack Perry anymore, and he was in a major storyline. We had the Young Bucks. We don't see them anymore. Major storyline. Luchasaurus is gone. I mean, all these people just disappear without a reason. And Tony Khan continues to book this shit like if he's playing with action figures in his mom and dad's basement. It's getting really bad. Even MJF has lost his luster to me. I'm really glad he didn't go to the WWE now, because I do realize how bad he would have gotten lost in that shuffle. His promos are now based strictly on shock value. Ripping apart Jeff Jarrett's age. To me, when you cut a promo, you don't focus on a person's shortcomings. You build them up only to take them down, even if you are a heel. So you talk about how Jeff Jarrett is one of the greatest of all time, how his family built a legacy in the NWA. But instead, he's calling him geriatric Jarrett. And to me, not only is it juvenile, but it's for the generations of wrestling fans that AEW is trying to attract. I don't understand why they're not using MJF in such a way to, like they were doing 2 years ago, to build his character and to expose this assholishness more. It's almost like he had someone writing for him, and that person has now disappeared.
You said something, at the start of this part of it, that you're glad that he didn't come to WWE. And when I was thinking about that as you were talking, I'm sitting here thinking, we saw, based on what you're saying, and I have seen clips on TikTok and things of this nature, these different clips of his promos and stuff, and there is a significant difference in MJF's presentation. And how much of that is influenced by Tony Khan? Does he now have writers who are scripting his promos for him? Now, to the contrary, I would suggest, I guess I should say, that him going to WWE, even at this point, even if, by some hook or crook, he was able to get out of his AEW deal, which I believe has 2 more years, if he was to come to WWE right now, and given how much the landscape there has changed from the McMahon era over to the Levesque era, do you think Triple H would be a better mentor or boss, for the lack of a better term, for MJF to really dial into what brought him to the dance? Because at this point, it almost seems like Friedman has been exposed as to what his limitations are, and why are we just now seeing that some 3-4 years into his AEW run?
Brian Boff, we are not running down Days of Our Lives. You are listening to the Hot Tag Podcast. You are listening to me with the frog in my throat, and thank you all for watching. As far as MJF goes, to me, you can only put so much polish on a dog turd, and in the end, it's still a dog turd. I think if MJF really wanted to start making headway back to WWE, he's going to have to prove himself again, because right now he's of no value. A lot of times WWE, I mean, if you're looking at it right now, I mean, let's look at the Royal Rumble, okay? I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but I said it a while ago. I said, while I appreciate Gunther as the world's heavyweight champion, he is not selling merch. He is not selling toys. Every time I go to a toy store to pick up figures, there's always a pile of Roman Reigns, always a pile of Seth Rollins. I'll see 6 or 8 Gunthers. But Jey Uso, there's no figures left. And oh my God, what a shock. He won the Royal Rumble. And MJF has to market his value, and if he doesn't market his value, then he's not going to get that big money contract that he's looking for. They might have to relegate him to NXT. I think he's got a long way to go. He was there. He was there just, a year and a half ago, and now he's lost it.
Well, he made the transition. We'll go ahead and get into the Royal Rumble and the aftermath of it, because I have opinions, as you can imagine. But before we start getting into that, we want to thank everybody that is tuning in here this morning, watching the live stream and corresponding with us. I mean, we're on track to make this the most interactive live stream that we've done so far on this network of any show. We're already up to like 17 messages or whatever. So we do appreciate everybody chiming in, and feel free to be a part of the conversation. I know we've seen David on here. We've seen Sean Sisk is on here. Amy Sheridan has chimed in. Brian Balf. We appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. All right. Overall, Sean, if you were to grade the 2025 Royal Rumble premium live event or pay-per-view, as it were, overall, what would you grade it?
B-, C+.
Really?
Yeah. I thought it was okay. Me personally, I know we're going to get into it, but I wish there was more surprises. I wish we had more special entrants. I wish we had R-Truth pulling his shenanigans, but none of it was there. So I love the Royal Rumble. Make no mistake about it. It's my favorite PLE of the year. But I told you from the get-go, oh yeah, they're putting out that Alexa Bliss is having contract negotiations fall through. I'm like, she's going to be there, Jason. We already knew that Charlotte was going to be there. We already knew that Jordan Grace was going to be there. So for the women's Royal Rumble, there was no surprises. The men's Royal Rumble, was there a surprise in there? Because if there was, it sure wasn't memorable.
Speed.
Dude, I did not understand that at all. I'm so glad that Braun Breaker about broke him in half.
Broke him in half.
Yeah.
Listen, I had no idea who the fuck that dude was, if I can be honest with you.
And he got a pop.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the NXT kids.
I did too. And Brian put AJ Styles. AJ's participation was a surprise. I didn't see that. But this Speed kid, like I said, I didn't know who he was. My girl who was watching it with me, she's not a wrestling fan, but she pays attention to what's trending and what's popular. And she's like, "Oh my God, that's Speed." I'm like, "Well, who the fuck is this?" Like she said it like I'm supposed to give a shit, right? Like I'm like,
right.
She goes, "Well, no, he's a YouTuber. That's all he does. He streams shit." I'm like, "Well, he must be streaming something, because he's now on this arguably the second biggest pay-per-view on the calendar." You know what I mean? So he's got to be somebody. But man, Braun Breaker just ripping his ass in half like that. Number one, it was scary to watch in real time. But on the other hand, man, that thing was viewed like 250 million times, within a 24-hour period or something crazy like that. So he got his 15 minutes of fame in WWE for sure.
Oh, yeah. And then you saw the aftermath after Breaker threw him to Otis, and Otis threw him over the table. I don't know if you saw it or not, but he had a big gash going along the back of his leg.
Yeah.
Welcome to the business, kid. You wanted it, you got it.
Makes you kind of wonder if if that was something like a Daniel Pewter type of thing. Anybody who remembers, I think it was 2004, 2005, something like that. Daniel Pewter had just competed in Tough Enough. Yep. And then he got into the Kurt Angle challenge and almost broke Angle's arm in an episode of SmackDown, where he was going into business for himself. And then he goes into the Royal Rumble at number 3 with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero already in there. In comes Pewter. So for 2 minutes, those two just teed off on him, and then coming in at 4 was Bob Holly.
Bob Holly.
Yeah, it was one of the most uncomfortable yet entertaining segments in Royal Rumble history from a behind-the-scenes perspective.
Brian Bob just posed a great question. Could the WWE pull a fast one on us and have Jey Uso challenge Joe Hendry in TNA for the TNA heavyweight title?
This goes along the lines of the last episode of the Fatal 4-Way. Jeff Hosky called into the show and said, what if Joe Hendry was to win the Royal Rumble? Because we all knew he was going to be in there because of this new partnership between TNA and WWE. And Joe Hendry is very much in the good graces of WWE. He's been on NXT, and the guy is one of the biggest names, one of the guys that's moving the needle the most right now in the business, even under the TNA banner. And I started thinking about it after we went off the air that night, and since then, like, man, could we see the TNA World Champion at WrestleMania? That would be unprecedented, and it would be huge for that brand. But what if Jey Uso was to challenge for the TNA title at WrestleMania? Man, that would change the landscape of the business on so many levels. And I mean, at bare minimum, if you needed that concrete proof that Vince McMahon is no longer has any affiliation with World Wrestling Entertainment, this would be it, because there's no shitting way he would allow this to be a thing, even talked about. But here we are, fantasy booking, and what if?
I just don't think it would necessarily be a thing because it's not a recognized WWE title. And we got a storyline within a storyline. You can say that, Jey Uso can say that he wants to beat Gunther and stand side by side with Jey Uso. But the fact of the matter is Jey Uso is out to prove something. He's going to beat the man that beat the tribal chief. And then I believe
yeah. Look at you.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's back up a little bit.
All right.
You good with Jey Uso winning?
I am. I was, number one, I realized I do something without realizing it the other day. I yell at the TV when I'm watching wrestling. I didn't realize how far into it I got, but Sharon was sitting next to me. And when Logan Paul threw out CM Punk, I jumped to my feet and started hollering yes, because I did not want to see CM Punk go to WrestleMania.
Really?
Oh, God, no. No, absolutely not.
Because you're not a Punk fan?
Because I'm tired of people finishing their story.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So when it got down to Jay and Cena, I wanted anybody but Cena. And kind of like how I wanted anybody but Punk. And I was like, God damn it, Super Cena's going to go over again. And when it was just a little bloop and he hit the floor, I stood up and cheered for Jay. I've never cheered for Jey Uso in my life.
I know it.
And because he overcame so many stories in that Rumble when they're focusing on him, it made me feel pretty good about what's going on in the Paulo Vasquero right now.
So me being me, I watched the show live. I had my opinions of it, women's match and the men's match, the Rumble matches. Real quick, I was disappointed that the Motor City Machine Guns did not regain the tag team titles on a premium live event. I was so excited for them to be on that card.
Right.
And I am not a fan of Johnny Gargano at all. Cannot stand this motherfucker. Like, he's got one of those faces. I just want to smack the shit out of.
That's how I feel about Tommaso Ciampa.
See, I dig Ciampa. I
Okay.
really do. I like that dude is legit, and I feel like, you know, if I'm in a bar fight, I want Tommaso on my side. Johnny Gargano ain't gonna do a motherfuck. You know, you feel me?
Right.
But to see Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin on a WWE pay per view, you know, because of where we're at, where we're based out of, to see them elevate themselves and to have that opportunity was really a feel good moment. I just really wish they would have been able to regain the titles there. Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, the ladder match for the WWE Championship, was everything I thought it was going to be. No surprises whatsoever. Um, Charlotte Flair winning the women's Royal Rumble match. As soon as she come out, I'm like, well, it's her match to win. I was excited to see Alexa Bliss. Like, for me, that was my highlight of the women's match. Now, the men's match. I have been on the Jey Uso bandwagon for a hot minute, and I really have appreciated this dude's story. And as soon as that show was over, the first thing that I did was go over to the cesspool that is Twitter or X. And you start seeing everybody chiming in. Oh, why did they have him win? Oh, they wasted this opportunity. It should have been Punk. It should have been Cena. It should have been Roman. It should have been McIntyre. It should have been Rollins. They're naming everybody else but Jey Uso. And I'm like, wow. You know, a week ago, you guys were all yeeting, and now because he is in the spot, now you're turning around and shitting on him. So between Saturday night and Monday night, I was real curious as to see how is the crowd going to respond to Jey Uso, because you knew he was going to open the show. They do every year with the Royal Rumble winner. Who's he going to pick? Shawn, what I'm fixing to say is going to be polarizing. But here's the thing about me. I don't give a fuck, if I can be honest with you. Send me your hate tweets. I do not care. What I saw on Monday night, the first 15 minutes of Raw, if you do not understand after watching the first 15 minutes of Raw why Jey Uso is in the spot that he's in, you need to stop watching wrestling.
Yeah.
Because nothing will ever make sense to you if you do not understand on a very basic and fundamental way as to why Jey Uso is where he's at. The way that crowd responded to him lets me know Levesque, Pritchard, whoever else had a hand in that decision making, they've got their finger on the pulse. And what I realized between Saturday night and Monday night is the ones that made the most noise against Uso are the vocal minority. Now, you're going to go into Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. You're going to have 70,000 plus people yeeting. And here's the thing, man. Now is that time to really shuffle the deck. We wrestling fans, the IWC, want more than anything to have new stars. He's here. He's here. Jey Uso is here. And whether he wrestles Gunther, where his story is already written, or he faces Cody Rhodes, much like you had said, and I hadn't even taken that into consideration. He's going to take down the guy that took down the tribal chief. You could go either way. But Jey Uso needs to win whatever title he's going for at WrestleMania. And that is how you make a new star. And if you don't understand that, quit fucking watching wrestling. Or just focus exclusively on AEW, because clearly that's where your mindset needs to be.
A lot of writers believe, and I believe this too to a degree, that it's not about gaining the title. It's about the hunt. It's about the hunt of gaining the title. Sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and you got just do it and say what if.
Right.
Because Jey Uso, there wasn't a person sitting down. Monday Night Raw, I fast forward because I don't like to watch the opening montage. I don't. I fast forwarded, stop, fast forward, stop, fast forward, stop. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And I sat there mesmerized by how one man can control a crowd of so many thousands and have them be personally and emotionally invested in him and his journey to the heavyweight title. I think Jey Uso was the right choice in this. My second choice would have been McIntyre, but that's another discussion for another time. And if WWE doesn't pull the trigger on it right now, I think they're going to lose the momentum, much like they've done in the past with like LA Knight or, even, let's say McIntyre. He won the title 30 seconds later. He loses it due to a Money in the Bank cash in by Karrion Kross. And what happened to McIntyre? Now he's lost in the shuffle again. WWE needs to pull the trigger on Jay, see where they can go with it, and, just let the cards lie where they may. Me, personally, I'm tired of Cody Rhodes. I've never been a fan of Cody Rhodes. His match with Kevin Owens was pretty good at the Royal Rumble. A little more extreme than I thought it would be. But in that same regard, Cody Rhodes can't control that crowd like Jay does.
Right. I think the crowd is starting to, well, much like you're saying, they're starting to get tired of the Cody Rhodes thing. I know he's still moving merchandise, and if you're under the age of 16, you're digging Cody Rhodes, and I totally understand why. I really do. He is, and I've said it a million times at this point. He is this era's version of John Cena. He is the target guy for a specific demographic of the wrestling fan. Much like what Amy Sheridan had just said here, this is the biggest crowd response, crowd pop since the whole Yes movement that Daniel Bryan was utilizing going into WrestleMania 30. But there's something different about this one. There's something different about the Yeet movement of Jey Uso. And I can understand and I can appreciate the comparison between Daniel Bryan and Jey Uso. There's something a lot more deep rooted with the Uso thing, and I don't know if it could be just a me thing because I'm a bigger fan of Jey Uso than what Daniel Bryan was doing, even though I appreciated that whole thing, very organic. But man, this thing with Uso is on a different level, and we started to see it last year in France at Backlash. Bro, the way he got that crowd when he walked out for that match against Damian Priest in France for Backlash was unlike anything I have ever experienced. I have gone back and watched that video probably 150 times. Just his entrance. We're going to see that again in Vegas on just a whole different level. I feel like.
Agree with you. Cody has to drop the title sometime. I mean, look at John Cena. He built his legacy on losing the title. 16 times he lost the title. I think Cody can lose it once. I don't think it would hurt him at all. And I love what Brian Ball says here. It seems insane to me that people complaining WWE is too predictable. Then they do this and shock everyone, and they still complain. That's because the IWC will never be satisfied. Ever, ever, ever. It's like discussing politics on social media. There's always going to be a group of people who's going to disagree with whatever the answer truly is. And right now, in the world of WWE, they got to find someone who is going to be the flag bearer for the company. I still don't believe that Cody is the right guy for it. I don't even think Jey Uso is the right guy for it. But at this point, you have to throw some more ingredients in the soup to find out the taste that you like. because if you don't mix it up a little bit, then it's just going to get stale. It's just going to be the same and be watered down. And to me, Cody Rhodes right now, very watered down. Gunther, they're not doing nothing with him. He's getting very watered down. They need to do something with Jey Uso to fire up the championship picture, because right now I'm more invested in watching Chelsea Green defend her women's United States title than I am caring about the WWE Heavyweight Championship.
Well, that's the soundbite from this episode.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a lot of the storylines that are going on right now. But can you truly tell me what Gunther's storyline is?
You raise a good question here. And I think that's why so many people are just automatically assuming it's going to be Gunther and Jay, because they do have an established rivalry at this point.
They
stemming
do, but
from what's that?
Then look at Cody Rhodes. Look how many places he's dipping his toe into. Look how many tag team matches they're putting him in. Mm-hmm. What's Cody's storyline? Well, we can't figure out nothing to do with him. Let's put him with the over guy in Jey Uso right now and see if he can't piggyback on some of that momentum.
Which isn't that something that you would have the face of the company having to ride the coattails of somebody that the vocal minority of the IWC is shitting all over, where a year ago they were part of that "We Want Cody" movement, because we were thinking that we were getting Rock and Roman.
Right?
That's the match I wanted, if I can be honest with you. I didn't want Cody Rhodes to finish his story. I didn't give a fuck about Cody Rhodes' story, because I never looked at Cody Rhodes as somebody that was a main event guy. Could he be in the main event? Yes. Could he be in the main event as a heel? I felt like he would have been better suited for that. Just me personally, because I just can't buy into him. But that's just me. Now here we are, a year later, Jey Uso is lighting it up. He's among the biggest merchandise movers. You mentioned it earlier. You don't see Jey Uso action figures at the store right now, and it's not because they're not making them, because they are. He's part of these sets. It's like people are starting to get on the yeet train, and I can appreciate that. Now on the flip side of that, you look at what is going on with Cody, and essentially he seems like he's in neutral, waiting to see who his opponent is going to be, presumably, just the way the commentators are talking. He's waiting for the winner of the Elimination Chamber, and there's a lot of favoritism towards Cena, because right now we've got Cena and CM Punk as the and McIntyre as the ones who have qualified for the Elimination Chamber. Now I want to talk about Drew McIntyre for a moment, if I can. I love Drew McIntyre. You know this. I've been singing this guy's praises for a long time, and I have really clamored for him to have a world title run in front of a live crowd, because his title run happened during the pandemic era. He performed in front of video screens at the Thunderdome. He deserved better. But bro, it seems like every 6 months he's going, he's getting pissed off, his feelings are hurt, storming out of buildings before the show's over, goes on social media, pitches a bitch. Like, what is the fuck is going on with this guy? Why does I don't know what his issue is. He took exception to a blown spot or something in the Rumble match that took away from his elimination.
Right.
I can understand the frustration to some degree. There's speculation it's either Logan Paul or LA Knight. It's one of these two guys that really pissed him off. But when you're in the ring during the Royal Rumble with 6 or 8 different guys, and there's a lot of moving parts, shit's going to go awry. You know what I mean? This is not the hill to die on. So why are you becoming a whiny fucking bitch? Because this is how I'm perceiving him, and it's starting to affect my fandom for him. Like, I love Drew McIntyre, and I want him to be one of the faces of WWE. but not like this.
Right.
You feel me? Like, what in the hell is going on with him?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I liked it when he was playing like the mediator between like Uso and Cody and Sami Zayn, and you know, hey, you know, this guy did this to you and this guy did that to you, and don't you remember this and don't you remember that? You know, it was like a manipulative type Drew McIntyre, which I liked. This whiny version of Drew, not so much. I don't know if he needs a character refresh or if he just needs to take some time off and come back. He is not the same guy he was when he was actually feuding with CM Punk. I mean, he was cutting some great promos. I was invested in him. I
His best
wanted
work.
him. Huh?
It was his best work.
Yeah. You know, but now it's kind of reeled back a little bit. It's much like I talked about earlier with MJF. Things are, you know, MJF is getting boring and watered down and slowly starting to lose the appeal that he once had. That's exactly what's going on with Drew McIntyre right now. Good morning, Don
Yeah,
Holland.
it's a shame too.
Yeah. I guess at this point, we just gotta see what happens. Who winds up in the elimination chamber. But I don't know, Jason. With the Royal Rumble this year, you really didn't give a grade. But were you disappointed with the lack of surprises this year? Because Stephanie
Yeah,
McMahon did it again. Told us there was going to be a ton of surprises, and there was no one there.
I think that's why I was kind of let down. I mean, like we had mentioned, AJ Styles. I was happy to see him back. The whole speed thing, like again, I didn't know who the hell he was. But because Stephanie McMahon went out there and went on social media, I think it was a Pat McAfee show that she was on, and said, be ready. There's going to be a lot of surprises. I think Brian had said something along the lines of he was low key kind of waiting to see some sort of interaction between Pat McAfee and Corey Graves.
Yeah.
In from the commentary, point of view, and with that show being held in Indianapolis, where McAfee is nothing short of a legend there from being a kicker for the Colts. I was also expecting at least some sort of more involvement from Pat McAfee. That didn't happen, but with Stephanie coming out and being like, yeah, this is going to be one for the history books. I'm like, man, don't pull a Tony Khan,
Right.
where you're putting out, we have a huge announcement or we got big surprises, and it winds up being a popcorn fart in church. Nobody gives a shit. And then we come away, like, oh man, that was really a letdown. I would have been cool with a diesel running. I would have been, you know what I mean? Like, well,
Right.
there's a number of different things they could have done here. But yeah, I mean, overall, and I didn't give it a grade, but I gave the overall show a B plus just because I appreciated the fanfare of Jey Uso winning the Rumble like that. I was so happy about that
Right.
because it was something new, something fresh. It was unpredictable. Nobody called Jey Uso to win this goddamn thing. Everybody's so goddamn wrapped up about the Cena retirement tour. When it came down to him, Cena and Jay, it was like, well, clearly they're going with Cena here.
Right.
So from that aspect, that was a little bit of a surprise, and I was happy about it because it's something new. We need
Right.
new stars. Roman carried the company for 3.5 years.
Now they're
And
saying he's hurt already.
yeah, well, we were thinking we were going to get Roman and Rollins at WrestleMania. Now I'm kind of feeling like they are going to make this a triple threat with Punk involved in there because Roman needs a breather.
Yeah.
And you can't really do Punk and Rollins one more time because they've kind of played that out a little bit,
Yeah.
Still meat on the bone, make no mistake about it, but if you put that as a one-on-one match at WrestleMania, unless they put it in Hell in a Cell or something, I don't really feel like anybody's going to care as much. You put this in a triple threat with some sort of stakes involved, well, then you've got something here. What's your takeaway with the whole Roman Reigns being injured and clearly we're not getting Rock and Roman. I just don't think we're ever going to get that match, Sean. Rock versus Roman.
Yeah, I think they're just going to keep teasing it. And Don, we actually addressed that when you said the Women's Royal Rumble. We knew Alexa Bliss was going to be there. We knew Jordan Grace was going to be there. Alexa Bliss, they were touting the fact that she was having contract negotiations that weren't going anywhere. So WWE always puts out reverse when it comes to Royal Rumble what really is going to happen. As far as Roman Reigns goes and this whole thing with him being hurt, I don't know, man. As quick as it happened, it makes me wonder if maybe the leukemia is back and maybe they had to pull him from shows to, treat this for now. I mean, leukemia is one of those things that could absolutely come back. I hope it's not a thing. I always questioned it to begin with. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, about the leukemia thing.
I mean, for them to cut off his comeback that quick, it's got to be something wrong. Got to be.
Well, we still have a long ways to go before WrestleMania. We have the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view coming up, premium live event coming up 2 weeks from today as we're recording this, March 1st. Can you believe that already? We're damn near in the middle of the month of February, and it just changed over. It seems like a blink of an eye ago, but
it took forever to get through. Took forever to get through January, and here we're already almost through February. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this Friday, gentlemen, this is a public service announcement. Valentine's Day is Friday. This coming Friday. So February the 14th. So if you were not in the loop and in an effort to keep your asses out of the collective doghouse, let us remind you Valentine's Day is Friday. So make sure you get your sweetie something or else you're not going to have a very good day. And if your significant other is in a particularly bad mood, chances are pretty good that's why. So you're welcome for that.
Yeah.
Huh?
You don't get her nothing, you ain't getting nothing. Catch my
nothing.
Nothing.
I'm actually looking forward to Valentine's Day this year. I don't mind telling you. First time in a long time that I am, for obvious reasons, but it's also because you get to see us beginning at 6 p.m. on the Fatal 4-Way live on ON TV, and we are going to be breaking down more headlines from the world of professional wrestling. The Mount Rushmore segment is going to be the real-life power couples in professional wrestling. So that's going to be a fun conversation. And we may or may not do a tribute to one Greg the Hammer Valentine. I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
Okay. Had me confused.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
All right.
Because of Valentine's Day.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, after 22 years. Listen, Don, if I may, I don't know if this is a practice that here we go. We're going to give real life advice now. I don't know if this is a practice that you subscribe in, but cook your significant other a home cooked meal, something that she likes, one of her favorite meals. If you don't know how to cook, then get something from her favorite restaurant to start with, and then just build from there. It's the little things at that point. Sean, you've been with Sharon for a long time. I mean, what do you do for Valentine's Day?
Shit, she's lucky if I even come home. No, after Fair. 25 years, brother, I'll be honest with you. I know it's cliche, but if I gotta take one day out of the year to show her how much I love her, that's not enough. So I try to show her every day. Valentine's Day to me is one of those Hallmark holidays where the flowers will die in 3 days, the card will get thrown into the garbage, and I'll probably eat the chocolate I buy her. So I mean, look at me, for God's sakes, I'm turning into Jabba the Hutt right before your eyes. So Valentine's Day to me, I love her. I give her a hug. I give her a kiss. And then she tells me what she wants, and I just go ahead and get it. So,
Well, like I guess it all depends on where you're at in your stage of the relationship. This is the first Valentine's Day with my girl, so I'm going to be putting in a little bit more effort than because anybody who knows me on the personal level understands why Valentine's Day has not been a thing for me
right.
for quite some time. Um, and so this year I'm actually going to put some effort into it. So, oh, you know what, Don, I'm going to give you a life hack. I'm going to give you a life hack. I doubt his wife is going to be listening to the show, so I'll go ahead and say it here. I want you to go to songoven.com. And what they do is you put in a couple of facts and figures about your wife, your significant other, where you met, her favorite things, and blah blah blah. These people will create a song for you with her name in it. Now you do something on that level, and then surprise her with it. They will send you the link to it. If you can sync up to like a Bluetooth or your car speaker, be low key about it. Play the song and just sit back and see if she picks up that song is about her. That, my friend, will be a game changer. I feel like I actually did that, and it turned out really, really cool. I was real happy with the end result, and so yeah, something you may want to think about. Anytime that you can incorporate your significant other on a personal level into whatever that gift is, personalizations and engravings and things, man, that's where it's at, in my opinion. Or just draw her a picture,
I got I got my wife's name tattooed on me. That's enough. So,
Yeah, fair. Yeah, on your ring finger too, is it not?
yep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We're coming up to the top of the hour, Mr. Grugel. Is there anything else you would like to focus on before we start to wind this down?
yeah, man, if anyone can find out where Jungle Boy Jack Perry and Young Bucks are, let me know, because pretty soon their faces are going to be on the side of milk cartons, and Tony Khan's going to be worried sick. No, man, I'm really looking forward to this Friday, the Fatal 4-Way, or as Brian Balf likes to call it, the Fatal 4-Play. I missed you guys here a couple weeks ago due to the inclement weather. That sucked. And
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to seeing Joe and you guys. And I turned right around. Said, nope, not going to even try it. But as far as wrestling goes on the wrestling front, if anyone could hook me up with where NWA TNA is showing their shows, because I want to watch them to incorporate this into our reports. I can't find them anywhere. And Jungle Boy has been in Japan. Okay.
I was going to say that. I feel like I had read something that he was in Japan, and that's where.
Isn't it crazy, though, that Tony Khan will go ahead and negate his storylines to let these kids go wrestle in Japan or whatever and not care about his product? I don't know, man. To me, that's just kind of... That's kind of I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like he's only hurting himself. He's only hurting his company. I don't get it. So,
Another reason why Tony Khan has no shit in business being in this business.
right.
You said it perfectly earlier. It's like he's lining up his action figures and figuring out fantasy cards, but it's real life people, not action figures. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. That's why he's got to get somebody in there that knows how to run a wrestling company.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint. I don't know.
AEW is on Max now, Brian, but all they're doing is streaming the same show that they're showing on regular cable. So,
Access TV is where you can find TNA now. I do know, like on my dad's cable system, it is way down
yeah.
the listing. You know, you go through your normal listings, and then you go through the Spanish section where all the channels are in Spanish, and then there's another grouping of American based networks. That's generally where they're at,
Gotcha.
in the 300 or 400s. I feel like somewhere or another, but they are on there. But as we have mentioned, it's not going to be long before TNA winds up landing on a bigger network, especially with this affiliation with WWE. You know damn well they're going to be kind of leaning into that when their next negotiation comes up here. Uh,
Absolutely.
Now, as I look on this, and I want to thank everybody who has tuned in and been a part of the conversation, because there's 42 chats on the live stream. That officially makes this the most interactive episode that we have ever live streamed across any show on the PFC Entertainment Network. You know, Shawn, we got
Can't
on
prove
here
me
this
wrong.
morning. Like, man, is there going to be anybody watching? This may become a thing now. You
Yeah.
know, this may become a regular thing, because this was a lot of fun, and we certainly appreciate everybody tuning in here. And one more time, as a programming note, check out the Fatal Four Way this Friday beginning at 6 p.m. Go to facebook.com/Orion ONTV. You can actually call into the show and be a part of the conversation, as well as the live chat. And check out the online store, pfcstore.printify.me. Next Friday is the big premiere of our spring lineup. And this weekend, I'm getting more and more merchandise being uploaded. So we're really looking forward to that next Friday, which is Valentine's Day, gentlemen. Don't forget. pfcspring.printify.me will be that site. Real quick here, Don chimes in. What do you guys think about Evolve coming back? Shawn, have you seen this?
I have. They don't need it. You got TNA, you got NXT. Evolve is just another show, unless they're going to use that WWE ID kids on that show. But I don't think it's really necessary, considering they got all these different smaller farming companies out there to where they can build up their roster. Um, I'm glad there's more places for more workers to work and get paid, but at the same time, with the WWE having all these other smaller companies working for them, is it really necessary? I don't think so.
All right. Don, Brian, Shawn, Sis, Amy, we appreciate you and everybody else that took the time to check us out this morning. This will be available beginning Monday morning at midnight on the traditional RSS feed. So if you came into this thing late and you don't want to go back and watch it on the Facebook feed, it will be available on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find the PFC Network podcast on the RSS feed. With that, we appreciate everybody. Go out, be awesome to yourselves and to each other, and we will see you next week right here on the Hot Tag on the PFC Entertainment Network.